So about 2 weeks ago, there was a big update to Hypixel Skyblock. And if you clicked in this video, you probably already know what I'm talking about. Of course, it's the T2 shortbow requirement change from level 3 to level 5. So luckily for you, in this video, I'm going to be showing you the easiest way which you can progress your Enderman Slayer and get it to level 5.
That's what I've been waiting for, that's what it's all about!
So just to quickly explain how the video is going to work, I'm going to be going through each level and probably what is the best way to grind for each level of Eman Slayer. And I'm going to be telling you whether you should be doing tier 1s, tier 2s, and also the setups required and how you can do them efficiently. Of course, another thing to note here is that I'm not going to be mentioning about carries, because realistically, if you want to get carried up to Eman level 5, then you don't really need a guide, to be honest. And I'm assuming that if you're Jujunon, you're probably a broke boy. And if you're a broke boy Jujunon who just wants to use his beloved bow back again, then don't worry, because I'm here to help. Also, just really quickly, if you find the video helpful or enjoy it all, then please consider liking the video and also subscribing, because it really helps me out and I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you'd like to join my Discord, we host loads and loads of giveaways on there, and recently a 50 million coin giveaway just finished. So if you want a chance to win some serious money, then the link is in the description. And with that out the way, let's get into the video. Alright, so just to start, I'm going to be going from level 1 to level 3, because it's all pretty much the same. Now, if you already own a T2 shortbow, and you already have the Enderman level 3 that it previously required, then you can go ahead and skip this part, because it's not going to apply to you. So firstly, what I recommend is that you can just do tier 1s, so you can get to Enderman Slayer 3. Now you only need to do 50 of these, which might sound like a lot, but really it's not a lot at all. The boss really only has 300k EHP, and it does an okay amount of damage, but if you're using somewhat mid-game setup, then you should be completely fine. There's really no special abilities that you have to watch out for, unlike the higher tiers of Void Gloom. All there is just a hits phase, and then you just slap the boss when it's your turn to do it. It doesn't matter about the hits phase, or whether it's not in hits phase, all you're doing is just slapping the boss anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So for a setup that should easily be able to do a tier 1, and you can probably do it in less than this, but what I've got is 3-4 Shadow Assassin, so we've got the Shadow Assassin helmet, the leggings and boots, and also a Zombie Knight chestplate, because it's a lot cheaper. Then currently, I'm using Aspect of the Dragons, although something like a Livid Dagger or Flower of Truth possibly as well could work. And then for the pet, anything is fine. You could use like a Griffin, a Baby Yeti, or just any pet you have lying around, which is a decent combat pet. The boss only has 300k HP, so really, as long as your skills and magical power isn't completely trash, then you should be okay. Alright, so now we get on to the fun stuff. Well, not really fun, but gets slightly more interesting if you know what I mean. We're going to be moving on to Enderman Slayer 4. And if you're wondering what the reason is for getting to this, it's because you can unlock Final Destination armor. Now if you didn't already know, Final Destination is good because it provides a ton of defense against Enderman, and also the full set bonus gives you intelligence, ferocity, extra damage. All in all, it's pretty great. So now the problem arises, well, how do you get to Enderman tier 4? Well, I have two options. Either you can grind out 300 tier 1s, and this option is just really mindless but easy, although it will take you a long time. However, if you know for sure that you can't do tier 2s, then it is a viable option. Now the other option is to do 60 tier 2s, however you won't be using Final Destination, and so it will be a lot harder. As you probably already guessed, this option is a lot harder, but it takes less time, and overall, pick what you want to go with. So, assuming you went for the option 2, which is to do 60 tier 2 bosses, I'm going to be showing you the gear that you can probably use to do a tier 2 boss. Firstly, for the weapon, you want to be picking up something like this. A Voided Katana, or they definitely have enchant hot potato books and all that jazz. Now you don't even necessarily want to use the Voided Katana for actual damage, but what you do want to have it for is the Soul Cry ability, where you gain 200 ferocity against Enderman. Now the second weapon I recommend is using a Livid Dagger, or any other budget mid-game weapon for that matter. The idea for this is that you use the ability of the Voided Katana to gain the ferocity, and then you slap it with your Livid Dagger. However, if you think you're doing more damage with the katana, then just use a katana instead, because you also take less damage from Enderman, which is useful. Next up, we have the pet. So my suggestion for the pet is using an Enderman pet, preferably epic. Now this is because you gain a decent amount of crit damage, and most importantly, you gain the Endering ability, which is you take less damage from Ender monsters. This really helps with your survivability, and overall, I really recommend it for Enderman Slayer. And finally, for the armor. Now, you maybe could get away with using something like this, but it's probably not going to work. So my suggestion for you would be pick up 3/4 Necron. Now you might start raging at me in the comments, because Necron is way too expensive for you, and if you're judging on, but ultimately, the Tier 2 boss has 15 million HP, and it's definitely not something to scoff at. And for the helmet, I recommend using a Reaper mask, or you can use something like a healer helmet, because it doubles your healing. Healing, when you don't have final destination, is really important. So that's why you also need to have like a mana flux, you need to have a wand of restoration, and also zombie sword as well helps a lot. And having double heals on all these things is really useful. One more thing before I end this section of the gear is that if you're summoning the tier 1s and tier 2s, then you can use Remnants of the Eye. These are really good, because when you're summoning the tier 1 and tier 2, you can summon it on the end island and not on the Void Sepulchre. And you can actually keep these in your inventory, so when you actually get killed by the boss, it's basically like a Bonzo mask, it just revives you again, which is actually really good. Now in the actual boss itself, it's not actually that complex. The main thing is you just need to do enough damage, and also you need to just be able to kill through the hits phase. You should just make sure that you're watching your health to make sure it doesn't drop too low, and also make sure that you're doing somewhat enough damage to be able to kill the boss in time. If you take care of your healing and do enough damage, then the rest will take care of itself, I'm sure about that. And along with the remnants, it's unlikely that you're actually going to die. However, when it reaches the midpoint of its HP, this is where you have to get a little bit worried, and a little more switched on to. Basically, what happens is that the boss starts throwing out beacons, and it's really quite simple. All you need to do is just track these beacons, and then go after them and stand next to them. And of course, there are mods which you can download to help you identify these, and it also gives you a time on how long you have for each beacon. And this is immensely useful. To sum it up, just keep an eye on your healing, keep an eye on your damage to make sure you're dealing that 12 more damage, and then when it reaches the midpoint of its HP, then that's when you go and track those beacons. And hooray! You got the Enderman Slayer 4. This section is actually going to be a little bit shorter than the Enderman Slayer 4 section, because it's actually a bit less to talk about. The main thing here is that you're going to have to get your hands on some final destination armor, because this is really going to help you in Enderman Slayer. You want it to be ancient, hot potato books, and just some basic enchants, and also rejuvenate. However, the unique thing about Slayer armors is that the amount of kills you get on Enderman affects how much defense you gain against it. Now I grinded out these kills all myself, but this is the result of about 1000 tier 3 bosses. So yeah, it's quite a lot. But don't worry, if you want some kills just beforehand, you can just go and buy them off the AH. So now, you don't really have an option of what you do anymore. You kind of have to stick to tier 2s, and unless you have some really good gear, then you can maybe do some tier 3s. But if you don't even have a Vorpal Katana, you're probably going to need some help with that. However, the good news is that tier 2s will get significantly easier because you have this armor set and you have so much more defense. You can still carry on using your Void Age Katana, and also your combination of that plus like something like a Liver Dagger or any other sword you have lying around. Overall, I would just keep my gear the same, although swap out your armor. Just to give you some perspective, I had fairly decent talismans and magical power when I started doing Enderman Slayer. However, when I was Enderman Slayer 4, I couldn't do a tier 3, and I grinded tier 2s till I got to Enderman Slayer 5. From level 4 to level 5, it is going to take you around 140 bosses, which I know, it's a lot, but if you do get carries, then it's going to make your life a lot easier. However, for now, you're just going to have to grind with your brand new final destination and your brand new weapons. And after multiple hours of grinding tier 2 Eman, if you follow the steps in my guide, you should reach the Enderman Slayer 5 and be able to use your beloved Juju Shortbow again and continue failing your tic-tac-toes in dungeons. I'm just joking, by the way. Anyway, I hope you found this guide useful, and if you did, then please leave a like, and if you're actually cool, then maybe consider subscribing. because it helps the channel out and I'd really appreciate it. And with that, thank you for watching and have a good rest of your day.